This bike right here is quite possibly one of the rarest bikes in my assortment of motorcycles. And it's got one of the strangest stories and a very unique feature that you almost never see in electric motorcycles. This is the 2016 Victory Impulse TT, and I'm gonna tell you guys all about it. And then after that, we're gonna take it for a spin. So this bike came out in 2016, and I was told that there was only 219 of them ever made. However, later I was told that they only sold 120 of them, which means, if that is true, that there is close to 100 of these things sitting in boxes in storage units somewhere in Polaris's vast array of storage. And if that is true, someone who knows the information about that, please contact me because I want to find that place. But before you were able to buy the bike under the Victory name, you could have bought this bike under another name, and that name is Bramo. Yes, Bramo. You know Bramo, maybe you know Bramo, as the company that licensed the first Ariel Atoms into the United States. I just so happen to have one parked right there. So Bramo was actually the one that invented this motorcycle and first built it. And in the early 2010s, they were doing some pretty revolutionary stuff with these motorcycles, way before anyone else was really taking the time to mess with electric bikes. They kind of made it mainstream. And they had race teams built around this thing and flashy marketing and really cool videos just to showcase how cool electric motorcycles could actually be. They were gonna change the world. They were gonna be the Tesla of motorcycles. And it's possible that they would have been. But this is one of those situations where they were actually just kind of ahead of their time. Unlike your brother Jimmy, where your mom's always like, oh, Jimmy's ahead of his time. He's an entrepreneur. He's gonna figure it out. Oh, Jimmy's so smart. He's got a new project. Oh, then he's gonna buy me a house and he's gonna buy me a car. You know what, Jimmy? You need to move out of the basement. That's what's gonna change the world. Forget you, Jimmy. Jimmy ain't buying you nothing, Ma. Nothing. Back to the bike. And the reason I say this was ahead of his time because no one cared about electric motorcycles back then. They barely cared about electric cars. But now, electric motorcycles are actually just starting to barely almost pick up steam. However, I still like this one the best, and I'm gonna tell you why in a moment. Because not only does it have over 50 horsepower, which we actually tested on the dyno a couple years ago, it can do 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds. It also has a top speed of 136 miles per hour, even though that they claim it's got a top speed of just over 100. We tested it on a dyno. And when they built this thing, they built it like a proper race bike. It's got front Brembo brakes on it. It's got fully adjustable front suspension. It's got upright sport bike seating, or this is more of like a naked bike seating with the dirt bike handlebars, but you get the point. It's got a fully adjustable Srkcycles rear suspension. And then obviously where the engine would normally be is a ginormous rectangular battery. And then down here is the actual motor of the bike. I don't know what this is. One of these is the gearbox. This might, I don't know what, something, somewhere is a gearbox, I don't know. The bike's also sitting on 17-inch tires, pretty much similar tires than what you would see on like a Ducati Monster. And then over here, it goes from the transmission to, we're using a chain, to the back tire, to the wheels. If you look at the controls, all the controls just look like normal controls. It's got an on-off switch and then a start button. Kind of like they took it off another bike and they use these buttons for different stuff, which is exactly what they did, to be honest. And then over here, you got your horn, turn signal, it's just normal. So this looks exactly like they pulled this off of a Suzuki GSX-R. Now this bike also claims a range of 140 miles. That's reasonable. On the average commute, you can ride this thing 3 days a week and not have to charge it. But if you would charge it, you would just charge it at home and plug it in. This is how you charge it. You would think this is where the gas tank would be, but no, it's actually a charger. Pop this thing open, you plug it in right there. And there's actually, this is a level 2 charger. There's 2 types of chargers that actually came with this thing, from what I've read. I've never seen one. This is the one that I have. This one plugs into there, and this one is, see, 120 volt charge cable. Just plug it into your normal wall, so you can charge this thing up anywhere you're at. They also apparently came with a 241, which would be a supercharger that would charge this thing up much, much quicker. And what makes this bike unique and sets this one completely out of the pack, it's got a clutch over here. Now you might see this and be like, oh, it's a brake lever, because that's actually what these electric bikes have been doing. No, back then, Bramo and Victory, they got it. They understood what people want for a motorcycle. So it's got a real clutch and it's got a real 6-speed gearbox, which I think is the coolest thing, because I still like shifting bikes, even though it's electric. Also, you know, when you're on an electric bike, and you turn it on, we're so used to being able to grab the clutch and it's kind of like feel it a little bit. If you do that on a live wire, you're in the wall. I've done it. I didn't go in the wall, but it jerks out, and I like having that clutch. Every other bike I have, except for my electric KTM E Freeride, has a clutch. I think it makes more sense, and it's a better transition from gasoline bikes to eventually not having a clutches, which I still right now prefer gasoline bikes. Although electrics are really fun, which I'm going to show you. Let's go take it for a spin. All right, guys, before we start going, let's do the verse of the day. Words of wisdom, Isaiah 9:2. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of deep darkness, on them has light shone. That's probably one of those verses you need a little more context. We'll read the rest of the Bible. Okay. All right, I'm on. That's on. It's funny how they use a start button to actually engage it. Some of the bikes, there's no start button. Sometimes you almost feel like you might think I forget to shift, but you still have a tachometer right there. Now, I never really figured out what the green is, unless it wants to be in the green. This is still kind of that time where they're trying to figure out, we got to make people feel like it's still a gasoline-powered bike, and I appreciate that, but there's just some things like green and red I get. Red, okay, we get red. But normally you'd see a green when that would be the most efficient mode. That's where the engine is most efficient. And maybe that's true, but I'm not sure if that makes any sense, because normally I would think an electric motor is most efficient at the lower RPMs. Check this out. So it says right there, sports. As far as I know, it's always in sport mode. I've never been actually able to get it out of sport mode. Let me give you a comparison of this and the Harley-Davidson Livewire. This is around 54 horsepower. We tested it. It's actually putting around 54 horsepower to the ground. Oh, these mirrors are all loose. Yeah, all right. That's whatever. All right, Joe, we'll see if you can keep up. So it's quick, like I said before, 0 to 60 is 4 seconds. However, it's not lightning quick. It's still only 55 horsepower or whatever. So compared to that BMW right there, he's probably gonna take me. Now compare this to the Harley-Davidson Livewire. That Livewire is pushing around over 100 horsepower. You're talking about double. But this came out, many years before that. But it's still fun, and what I love about it, I do love that that manual shifting. I think that's what makes the bike. That's what separates us from every other electric bike. I did see one electric bike out there that had it. It was definitely from China. But I think the Bramo's got a really good story, because it was actually an American company. And I think it's a cool looking bike. Now the one thing is, when Bramo had it, they had two bikes. They had the R and the RR. It was also called the Impulse. And every time you see pictures of the RR, it always had a full fairings, and it was like a special, it was always special painted race bike. But then when you read about it, it just had more horsepower. I couldn't really figure out what the difference of them was. But if anything, this resembles more of the single R Bramo bike. The bike handles pretty well. If you're wondering, it is a 6-speed gearbox. So if you were thinking this would be probably the really awesome entry-level electric motorcycle for somebody. But the fact that the availability is not there, every once in a while you do see these things for sale. I got this one for $5,000. And last time I saw one was at a Mecum auction, and I think it sold for maybe 12. It was somewhere around that ballpark, but I think they were expecting to get 25 or 30, because there's so few of these things. Joe, did you stall? Oh man, I'm telling everybody, Joe stalled my bike. Hey Joe, 1, 2, 3, go. Forget you, Joe, and your 50 more horsepower. It's not as fast as I remember it being. For some reason, when I remember having it before, I was like, man, this thing's fast, but 50 horsepower is only 50 horsepower. But it's still really fun. I do enjoy riding it. I'm sorry for those people who are OCD and they're looking at these mirrors and they're like, oh my, no, Sean, fix those mirrors. I can't fix it on the drive. I'm just not looking at them. So if you recall, the Gen 2 Dodge Viper, when that came out, was 450 horsepower, and that did 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. It did it sideways, and then it did that right before you hit a tree. So that was always considered pretty fast. That was slow. I don't know why it was so slow. I think this bike is getting slower. Unless there's a mode, unless there's another mode, like a sportier mode that I need to put this thing in, but the battery's low. Hold on, it just said something. Nah, it went away. Let's go jump on the highway. So as much as I say I hate electric bikes, I do like this one, and I would love to see a manufacturer make another better version of this with a motorcycle with a gearbox, because I think it makes sense, and I think it's an easier shift. You know, imagine a couple generations of this, and then they release one that's full automatic with no gearbox. Or I still think the gearbox makes sense. I don't know why. I don't know why everyone else just hates on it. Battery's low. It says battery's low. It's giving me some weird battery's low S56. What does that mean? I think it's actually not giving me all the juice that it should, because it used to feel much faster than this. I don't know what this battery's low thing is though. Very interesting. Right now it's saying something. What is that saying? Recharge required. Oh, it went from... Nope, I'm dead. Maybe all those messages that people were like, you can't leave your battery at 99%. Maybe they were right. All right. Well, let's go back to the shop and recharge this bike. So as you can see, my bike is dead and needs to be charged. Go electric. Go electric. But luckily, I've got a solution back at the shop. Now, this is what I think is pretty exciting about this bike. And that's because of a product that really wasn't around 10 years ago or back when this bike came out. And that's what we call battery banks or battery generators. Like something like this, the Blue Eddy. So pretty much what this is a large group of batteries that can be charged by solar panels or plug it into a wall AC outlet, and you get to use the power anywhere to power pretty much anything. Now this is the Blue Eddy Elite 200 V2. This is the second version of it. And it's made to be incredibly durable, so you can take this thing anywhere. You can run your refrigerator or a freezer. We actually take these things on video shoots, so we always have the ability to charge up our phones or charge up the cameras or for an emergency. So when this bike came out, all you really had was generators or to plug it into the wall. You barely even had chargers, like the superchargers and all the chargers network that we have now for like Tesla and other stuff. It was barely available back then. Not as much as it is right now. But you were very limited on how you could charge this thing if you didn't have a generator or a wall. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Sean, but how long is this thing really gonna last? Well, this thing can do up to 6,000 charges. That's a lot. That's a ridiculous amount of charges. And has a power output of up to 3,900 watts. But what I really like about it is the ability that if I wanted to take something like this, an electric motorcycle or an electric bicycle or anything, and I wanted to go out in the sticks, I wanted to go camping, or I wanted to kind of go out where there's no access to plug-in power, I can still run this thing and keep this thing charged. I can be completely self-sufficient because that thing can charge off of solar panels in pretty low light. Or let's say it's not a recreational thing. Let's say the power grid goes out and I still have to go somewhere. I still have to ride my bike. Bam, I can charge this thing up with the Blue Eddy. So for more information on the Blue Eddy Elite 200 V2 and their Black Friday deals, check out blueeddypower.com or check out the link below, because power beyond boundaries starts here. All right, so I could not end the video like that. I put this thing back on the charger. It was not running the way I thought. I've ridden it for a little while. I'm like, oh, maybe it's just not as fast as I thought it was. And then what I realized happened is it's after a couple years. We haven't ran it for a long time. It said 99%. It completely died. Now we got to charge up to 57%. I think this is going to be a little more fun. Let's go take it for a spin. So here's what it is. About 70 foot-pounds of torque instantly. They actually use a computer to control it a little bit. And then over 50 horsepower instant, like right away. Before that BMW was just pulling on me so hard. I think this will beat it. And let's go do a real 0 to 60 on this bike. Hey Joe, go for it. Smoked you, Joe. So before, it was actually acting like low battery mode. So it was holding back power so you can get yourself home. But what it was telling me was it had full battery. It didn't know how to deal with the battery just losing power from sitting for so long. And that's how it reacted. Here, Joe, you go real fast. Just as fast as Joe. Oh, you were in third? Oh, yeah, this thing feels really, really good. We'll do 0 to 60 up here. This thing gets there pretty fast. All right, let's do this. 1, 2, 3, go. That's pretty quick. It's not live wire quick, but
That's a lot of fun, and it's a million times faster than what it was before. And I feel so much more connected with this bike because it's got a gearbox. So I'm glad that the bike is back. It's running the way it should. If you do get a chance to buy one of these, I would scoop it up. If you even see one, go look at it. There's not very many of these things. I think they're really cool bikes. And as of right now, the last time I checked, no one knows about them and no one cares about them. I actually might buy a couple more. Maybe stash them away if I can still get them cheap. So I think it's a great bargain. We'll see you guys next time. Remember, it's not what you're riding, but where you're going.